Which brings us naturally to Rick Casey. Because I believe he has a show that comes on right after, I have no idea. Rick Casey started his career as a cub reporter for the San Antonio Light back in 1967. Has served, which is, I believe, before Molly Cox was born, because she could be my daughter. He has since served as another stint at the Light, as well as 2 others at the Express News, also 2 as editor of San Antonio City magazines, also a reporter and editor at the Seattle Times in the early 80s, a columnist for the Houston Chronicle from 2003 to 11, and for the past 3 years, he has served as host and managing editor for the very modestly named Texas Week with Rick Casey, which was going to be Rick Casey's Texas Week, and then they wanted to lengthen it. But it airs Fridays at 8 o'clock on KLRN. Please give it up for Rick Casey!
I thought it was unfair that I was going to be following the coyote. This is absurd. You know, to give a man of Irish blood a presentation that has 20-second packets is an act of cruelty. I spent a bunch of time taking pictures, and I spent a bunch of time writing this, and I spent more time trying to make it fit. But here it goes. This is a story of a neighborhood and a family. It happens to be my neighborhood and my family. I first moved into what we came to call Baja King William in about 1980. I rented a cottage from Mike Casey, who was a wonderful landlord. In an apartment about 200 feet away lived a young woman named Kristen Winget. We never met during those years, and Kristen says that's a good thing. I left San Antonio and moved to Seattle, then New York. New York was great fun, but I came to realize that San Antonio was home. So I called my friend Debbie Maltz, and she was manager of the Casino Club Apartments down on the Riverwalk. I said, Debbie, I'm coming home. You got anything for me? She said, you're in luck. Mrs. Glasscock just died. She remembers that. So I met Kristen a month later, paying rent in Debbie's office. She agreed to go out with me despite the things that Debbie told her about me. One thing led to another. We got married. We bought a cottage on Genther Street, and with the help of architect Ron Bechtel, gutted the interior and made it into a bright and cheerful home. It was perfect for Kristen, me, and our baby Rosalind, who is here. At that time, Kristen's father was retiring from his job with Mobil in Indonesia. They bought a house on King William just a few blocks away from us. Some neighbors worried that they had paid too much, Jim and Dorothy did, but they were buying more than a house. They were buying proximity to their only grandchild. Kristen said everybody needs somebody close with whom they can talk about their parents, so we had a second baby in 1992. We needed to either add on or buy, and at that time a big, wonderful house came on the market on Adams Street at a very good price. It was only a couple hundred yards away, as the grapple flies. Built in 1893, it was a great family house with a large yard. It accommodated a treehouse for the girls. Kristen kept chickens and a rooster named Mr. Roosevelt in one back corner and bees in the other. We called it King William Farms, and we spent 10 happy years there. It was hard to leave. But in 2003, I was offered a job as a columnist at the Houston Chronicle. At 56, it looked like one last major challenge for my career, learning and reporting on a vibrant city that I knew mainly as what San Antonio was proud of not being. The girls were in middle school, making it as much a challenge for them as for me. We enjoyed Houston very much, but San Antonio is home. I had fallen into a part-time job doing the weekly program at KLRN and commuted for a couple of years. Then in February, we fully moved back, and by this time the girls were visitors. So we bought a 2-bedroom loft across Alamo Street from Rosario's. So let's recap. Kristen and I moved into the neighborhood as renters. Later we met and married and bought a small starter house. Later, when our family and income grew, we bought a large family house. And while we were at the starter house, the girls' grandparents bought a very nice house to be near us. We later downsized to a loft all within 5 blocks. This is a neighborhood with family values. It had housing for every phase of the life cycle. Now, I said is, but I meant was, because clearly King William has changed. The very smart architect and urban planner Irby Hightower used to call it a small town on the edge. Stop, I need to move this up. A small town on the edge of downtown had a stagnant commercial quarter and residents who don't want change, but now it is a thriving urban neighborhood with Blue Star galleries, hip monosyllabic restaurants, Apartments are still available that many young people can afford, but the prices of even small houses have skyrocketed. Perhaps an extreme example of housing inflation is our first home, which we bought for $85,000, sold to the writer Sandra Cisneros in 1992 for about $140,000. She further upgraded the house, added a nice large studio in the back. She now has it listed for $995,000. Despite housing inflation and gentrification, King William and Southtown remain a good mix of housing types: apartments, small charming houses, and large stately houses. One lesson to me, a neighborhood with good design can draw an economically diverse population. By contrast, the vast majority of U.S. housing developments since World War II are for thin slices of the economic pie. We have desegregated by race quite effectively in the sense that blacks and Hispanics who can afford it can live just about anywhere they want, but we have ruthlessly segregated economically. We've seen resistance to historical designation by some San Antonians, but clearly the regulations that come with it are what have made King William and Southtown so desirable. Especially important is the prohibition against tearing down historically significant houses. Without these restrictions, King William would look more like Houston. There, many King William houses would be called teardowns and be replaced by McMansions that are parodies of classical architecture. Our friend Jake Beasley, looking at a house that we lived in for a while in Houston, said, "It's a Marriott of a house. It has all the right appointments but no soul." Then there are the ubiquitous townhouses that amount to granite-appointed nests built high top of homely garages. They provoke a practical problem. A street packed full of garages and their curb cuts mean there's no street parking for visitors, and I'm not making this up. If you throw a party in Houston, you have to hire a concierge parking service for your guests. We have a few new houses in King William, but their design must be approved as being respectful of the older houses. Otherwise, we would have the McMansions and brutalist townhouses are almost as bad faux Victorian knockoffs, which they have a lot in the Heights neighborhood. So we have saved the houses, but not the intergenerational dynamic of our previous economic mix, and losing a strong working class contingent makes us poorer, not least of all because prejudice in both directions is made easier by distance. Economic segregation is a national issue that Southtown could become a model of addressing. So I would like to see city officials cooperate with Southtown leaders in aggressively seeking ways of keeping affordable housing in Southtown. Some will object that this is spending money to help the takers. But most of the people who make that kind of a comment get thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of housing subsidy. We call it the income tax break on your mortgage interest. And nationally speaking, it's a little known fact, the value of the mortgage interest deduction, the subsidy we give to people like us who can afford to buy a house, is 10 times all what the federal government spends on low-income housing. So we can do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Great job. I just have a couple of embarrassing personal questions. Sandra Cisneros' house cost how much?
Well, it was on the market for $995,000. I think she's factoring in some historical value because I used to live there.
Yeah. Was it purple when you lived there?
No, actually, she was kind. She referred to it as our color that we had it as flan. Kristen referred to it as baby shit yellow. But apparently my value isn't that much because I just checked on it today, and apparently it was pulled off the market 10 days ago. So
now, you've seen King William change since you were here
years and years ago. And some people have talked about that, the market's going up, that maybe the east side, near east side, is going to be the new King William or the new South Town. But then there's also concern about gentrification. And so is that a real concern?
I think it is a concern. I mean, one of the things I really loved about King William when we first moved in was, we actually had Section 8 housing that within a stone's throw of our house. People across the street, wonderful old couple. They had 2 Cadillacs, but what you need to know is that the newer one was 20 years old. He had a small automobile parts store. Great. When our house was burglarized while it was under reconstruction, he went across the street, chased the burglar. The burglar ran down into the river, which abutted our backyard. He sat in our backyard and waited until they notified me about it because the house wasn't secure. When you live in a neighborhood with a whole mix of incomes, you learn 2 things. You learn that there are rich people who are 4 things: rich people who are assholes, rich people who are nice. There are poor people who are assholes, and there are poor people who are nice.
And speaking of assholes, difference between Houston and San Antonio. Just one quick thing that you missed while you were in Houston the most. I know you came back and forth, but when you were there full time, what did you find yourself missing?
Well, the easy answer to that is that they're trying to figure out Tex-Mex food. They haven't been able to do it. They have great Ethiopian food.
And now, what did you miss? What would you like to see in San Antonio that they have in Houston that maybe some of these people can help develop?
Well, frankly, some of the people are helping develop it. What I miss most, or we miss most, I think, is the performing arts. And as a woman named Lisa Gray, who's a columnist for the Chronicle Performing Arts Editor, explained to me, she said, Houston is a great place for the arts because there's a shitload of money and just the right amount of insecurity.
And with that, give it up for Rick Casey. Thank you.